She mimicked my appearance, settling demurely on my bed, waiting for my husband to join her. Even my parents had hoped she would enjoy a harmonious marriage with him, blessed with children. When my husband entered the room, my sister, cheeks flushed, stepped forward to assist him in removing his clothes. She had no idea the man before her was far more formidable than she could ever imagine. I hovered silently, observing Caspian as he entered, his armor streaked with blood and dust. 2 months apart had taken a slight toll. He appeared thinner, yet even more imposing. Alara Sterling, my sister, nervously clutched her gown, then gathered her courage and approached him. Her voice was soft. "My lord, allow me to help you bathe and undress." Her voice mirrored mine so perfectly that even Caspian failed to notice the deception. Originally, our tones were distinct. Just a week ago, on the brink of death, she had boasted to me, "Lyra, I endured hell to imitate your voice. Does it not sound exactly like yours?"
It did.
Caspian, ever cautious, never suspected that the woman before him was an impostor. He began to remove his armor, arms open. Alara's face warmed, and her delicate hands reached for his belt. She wasn't naturally pale, but for 2 years, she had taken skin-whitening potions and avoided sunlight to match my complexion. In the end, she became just as fair as I was. Not only her voice and skin, but every expression, every gesture, had been meticulously copied. She admitted she had spent 2 full years preparing, determined to claim everything. Caspian glanced at her. "Did you change your perfume?" Alara hesitated, then murmured, "Yes, my lord. Do you like it?" Caspian frowned. "It's too strong. Not as pleasant as before. Switch it back." Alara immediately agreed. "Yes, my lord." He walked toward the bath, and she followed eagerly, a spark of triumph in her eyes. She had not been discovered, and naturally, she was elated. I stayed away from the bath, knowing too well what awaited her there. Caspian had been in the military since age 12, serving 13 years. His intensity, especially in private, was unmatched. Though I never knew if he had companions during his 2-month absence, whenever he returned, the experience was always overwhelming. He had never been gentle with me, often remarking, "Your parents sent you to please me, yet I see little effort." Nanny Eliza advised me to accommodate him more, and following her guidance lessened his harshness. Originally, Caspian was meant to marry Alara. But that year, returning to the capital with his army from the Northern Territories, he displayed 5 severed heads on his saddle. Though he claimed they were bandits, everyone knew they represented 5 powerful families who had accused his family years ago. The Sterlings were one of them. Our family had suffered greatly because of those accusations, and Caspian sought revenge. The 5 families tried to appease him with rare jewels and beautiful daughters. Alara was among those daughters, terrified she would be tortured, and begged our parents not to send her. Our parents adored her, so they forced me to take her place and marry Caspian. Though we were twins, a seer had predicted at our birth that one of us would bring ruin to the Sterling line. I, the quiet, seldom crying twin, was deemed ill-fated. My parents had intended to drown me, but my mother's love intervened. She threatened her own life, saving me. I survived, confined to the smallest, most hidden courtyard of the estate, cared for only by Nanny Eliza. From then on, outsiders only knew Alara Sterling, the cherished eldest daughter. No one knew of Lyra, the girl who grew up hidden like a weed in that secret courtyard. The Sterlings never named me. Nanny Eliza chose my name. On the day she carried me to that hidden garden, she recalled the pear blossoms in full bloom, the most beautiful she had ever seen. She called me Lyra, a name echoing farewell, in the old tongue, a fitting prophecy for my brief, tragic life. My spirit drifted unwillingly toward the bath. Caspian was already there, leaning against the edge as steam curled around him. His body was traced with old scars, each one sharp and uneven. When Alara's eyes caught sight of them, fear flashed across her face. She was terrified. It amused me. She hadn't hesitated when she poisoned me, yet now she trembled before him. I hovered beside Caspian, waving my hand in front of his eyes. Once, I had feared this man too. But now, I prayed he might sense me, might realize that the woman before him wasn't me. My body still lay beneath the soil of the Sterling garden, where ants and worms gnawed at my flesh. If Caspian could avenge me, even for the sake of our 3 years together, I would rest easier. If he would not, Then at least he could dig up my body and burn it. I had always loved warmth. I did not wish to lie cold and forgotten forever. But he couldn't see me, couldn't feel me. He simply rested there, eyes closed. Alara bit her lip and steadied herself before stepping toward the bath. Caspian's eyes suddenly opened, locking on her. "Is something the matter, my lord?" she asked gently. He studied her for a moment. "I heard that while I was away, you returned to the Sterling estate?" Alara instantly knelt. "Yes, my lord. My mother was gravely ill, so I went home for a few days. Please forgive me." The mention of my mother pierced me like a blade. She had once been willing to die to protect me, yet in the end, she deceived me, sending me back home so Alara could end my life. I wanted to ask her why. Why she once loved me enough to save me, only to betray me so cruelly. After a pause, Caspian said, "If your mother was sick, returning home was understandable." I froze. He had never spoken to me with such gentleness before. On our wedding night, he had told me I belonged to him completely, that I had no will of my own. My life and death were his to command. That night he had gripped my face and said coldly, "You may look pitiful, but do not expect mercy from me." He had lived by those words. For 3 years, outside our nights together, he rarely spoke to me and never once allowed me to visit my family. "Thank you for your kindness, my lord," Alara murmured. She rose, picking up a towel and leaning close to wipe his shoulders. Before she could touch him, a voice called from outside the door. "My lord, the king requests your presence at once." Caspian stood, water dripping from his frame. Understood. He left without another glance. Alara's face twisted in frustration as she watched him leave. She stamped her foot, annoyed that the king's summons had ruined her chance to win his favor. Alara returned to her chambers, spinning in delight like a child. Moments later, my former maid, Daisy, entered with a tray of tea. "Congratulations, my lady. You deceived the lord perfectly." Daisy had been sent by the Sterling family 2 years earlier, right after Nanny Eliza, who had raised me, passed away. At the time, I had believed my family was finally showing concern for me. Now I knew the truth. They had only sent Daisy to spy, to prepare for Alara's eventual takeover. They had been plotting my death for 2 years. Alara drew Daisy close. "Smell me. Tell me what scent you notice." Daisy leaned in. "Pear blossom, my lady. Nothing else." Alara frowned. "Are you sure?" He was near me for only a moment and still noticed my old sandalwood perfume. I didn't understand it either. Caspian had never been sensitive to scents. How had he known? Daisy tried to reassure her. "Perhaps the sandalwood you used before was strong. The scent hasn't fully faded yet. In a few days, the pear blossom will cover it completely." Alara nodded. "You're right." She lit several more pear blossom incense sticks, then pulled out a small doll covered in charms. Her lips curled as she began to pierce it with pins. "May you burn in hell, with no chance of rebirth." My name, Lyra Sterling, was scrawled across the doll's chest. I almost laughed. Whoever sold her that curse had to be a fraud. Even as she drove the pins in, I felt nothing at all. After a while, she sighed dramatically and said to the doll, "Oh, little sister, don't be so miserable. You had my lord for 3 whole years. When I saw him today, I finally understood why you were so obsessed. He looked like a god of war, so much better than that dull scholar our parents tried to marry me to. Truly, no man compares." After my marriage to Caspian, Alara had been sent away to live quietly and wed that scholar. Now I wondered what had become of him. Perhaps he was dead too, another casualty of her obsession. She twisted the doll's head with a cruel smile. "You should thank me, really. Without me, you never would have married him. You only borrowed what was mine, his status, his power, his touch. Now, I'm simply taking it all back." Once, she had trembled at the thought of marrying Caspian. She had begged to avoid him. But when she saw me living safely by his side, when she saw how high he had climbed in the royal court, her fear turned to infatuation. She lost sleep, lost appetite, became consumed by envy. "Daisy," she asked suddenly, "how often did the Lord spend his nights with Lyra?" Daisy answered cautiously. "Whenever he wasn't traveling or attending to official duties, he stayed in her chambers, my lady." Alara's expression darkened. "So what? 3 years of favor, and not a single child. Clearly, he only kept her for amusement." She wasn't wrong. Caspian had forbidden me from ever becoming a mother. I had taken medicine regularly, and truthfully, I hadn't wanted to bear a child destined to live as I had, unwanted and bound to tragedy. The night dragged on, yet Caspian still hadn't returned. Alara grew tired and told Daisy to wake her the moment he came back. I drifted out of the room and settled on the rooftop, gazing toward the king's palace in the distance. Rumor had it that the king's health had worsened these past few days. If Caspian had been summoned now, it meant he was likely being entrusted with something of grave importance. He already stood above nearly everyone in the realm, second only to the king himself. Once he reached that height, I wondered if he would finally turn his blade toward the Sterling family. He had been restless for years now. The Sterlings and the other noble houses tried to pacify him with gold, treasures, and women, as if such trinkets could soften vengeance carved into bone. When I returned home that day, it was to warn them that Caspian's patience had worn thin. But I never had the chance to speak. They silenced me first, with poison in my cup. The moon sank lower, paling into the first light of dawn. The sky was beginning to brighten, and I had to return before sunlight touched me. I was no longer human. The light I once loved now burned me. Caspian came home around noon. Alara had laid out a lavish meal, smiling brightly as she waited for him. I hovered in the corner, faint and hungry. During the 2 weeks before my death, I could barely eat. Every meal made me nauseous, and the night I returned to my family's house, I swallowed the poisoned wine before a single bite could pass my lips. I had died both starved and betrayed. Alara, having fretted over Caspian's absence, hadn't eaten properly either. But now that he was home, her appetite returned in full force. Caspian, however, didn't touch his food. His gaze fixed on her instead, sharp and assessing, while his fingers tapped lightly on the table, a habit of his whenever he was deep in thought. Had he noticed something? "Why aren't you eating, my lord?" Alara asked softly. He didn't answer her question. Instead, his voice came low and steady. "You seem to be eating quite well." Alara froze, instantly realizing her mistake. She should have mimicked my quiet restraint. Setting her fork down, she bowed her head. "Forgive me for my lack of decorum, my lord." Caspian's expression didn't change. "I heard you were unwell last month," he said. "I've arranged for the palace physician to examine you this afternoon." A flicker of fear flashed across Alara's face. She was terrified the physician might notice something strange, something that didn't belong to Lyra Sterling. But I was confused. I hadn't died until last month, and Caspian's words were clearly about my illness before my death. He had never shown concern for my health before. Why now? Though Alara wanted to refuse, she dared not defy him. Instead, she began interrogating Daisy about my condition. Last month, Daisy recalled, the lady wasn't gravely ill. She just lost her appetite, felt queasy after rich food, but nothing too serious. Alara's face turned pale. "You're describing symptoms of pregnancy." I froze. That couldn't be. I had never stopped taking the medicine he gave me. Daisy shrugged. "Even if she was pregnant, it doesn't matter now, Miss Alara. The lady is gone. The dead tell no tales." Yes, I was gone. And if I truly had been carrying his child, no one would ever know. My body was already buried deep beneath the earth, my secret swallowed along with me. At noon, the palace physician arrived promptly at the estate. After checking Alara's pulse, he stepped aside to speak privately with Caspian. I floated closer, straining to hear. The physician's words reached me. "The lady is not pregnant." So that was it. Caspian had suspected I might be with child. That explained his sudden concern. If I had carried his offspring, he would have acted swiftly to remove it. Caspian murmured, thoughtful. "My lord need not worry," the doctor continued. "Her pulse is strong and steady, and her overall health is excellent. If your lordship wishes for an heir, this year should bear fruit." He assumed Caspian's interest was in producing a successor. Caspian's gaze shifted. "She is in good health?" "Yes, perfectly," the physician confirmed. Caspian glanced toward Alara, who was keeping her composure at a distance, then instructed his aide. "Inform the Sterling family. Tomorrow, I will escort the lady to her family home." In all our 3 years together, he had never once volunteered to visit my family. Rarely had he even received my parents when they arrived. But he must still be unaware of the truth. Otherwise, given his reputation, any deceit from the Sterling family would have been met with ruthless retribution. Alara's composure faltered when she heard this. "He's only spent a few hours with me. Has he realized I'm not Lyra?" She quickly masked her fear. No, he hasn't noticed. Otherwise, my head would already be gone. But the physician's visit must have sparked suspicion. Daisy, find out at once. Alara's cleverness shone through. Even children raised in prominent households like the Sterlings could not afford to be naive. The following morning, the carriage departed for the Sterling estate. The spring sun blazed overhead, forcing me to remain in Caspian's shadow as the carriage rolled forward. His tall frame shielded me completely from the searing rays. I never imagined needing his protection like this. When they arrived, my parents awaited them at the entrance. Their faces lit up as they welcomed Caspian. My mother clasped Alara's hand, concern flickering in her eyes. A sharp pang struck me. In my memory, my mother had never looked at me like that. Even on the day I married Caspian, knowing I might die, her gaze had been full of joy, for Alara, not for me. I had always thought that since she had fought for my life, she loved me too. But now, it was clear where her heart truly lay. Mother, I would have gladly taken her place. Why did you have to let me die? I whispered, drifting beside her. She could not hear me. Her soul belonged wholly to Alara now. My father subtly asked Caspian why he had brought Alara, given pressing matters at court. Caspian smiled and spoke lightly. It's a beautiful spring day, and your gardens are renowned. I came to enjoy them. I knew better. My body lay beneath these gardens, still hidden. The Sterling family had likely moved it carefully during the night, ensuring no one could stumble upon the secret. Caspian walked leisurely through the blooms, Alara by his side, nervous yet compliant. My mother patted her hand softly, a signal of reassurance. My father spoke of court matters, but Caspian paid them little mind, plucking a crabapple blossom and tucking it into Alara's hair. Alara's eyes sparkled as she lowered her gaze. My parents exhaled, relief written across their faces. I remembered the same gestures once performed on me. Caspian had never loved me. I was just an object to amuse him, adorned for his pleasure or for display before indulgence. Thank you, my lord. Alara cooed softly. Caspian only smiled and walked on. Ahead lay the spot where I had been buried, tangled beneath a rose bush. Yet when I hovered there, I felt nothing. My body had been moved, likely during the night. They dared not leave it in place. Caspian's instincts were too keen. A breeze stirred, carrying the scent of pear blossoms. White petals drifted like snow, ephemeral and fragile. Caspian's gaze followed them to the far end of the garden, where a small courtyard held a pear tree in full bloom. My parents tried to block him, claiming there was nothing to see. Caspian shook his head, drawn by the tree's purity. I have never seen such blossoms. Let me see. Alara feigned weakness. My lord, it's too hot. I feel unwell and wish to rest. Caspian studied her briefly, then escorted her away. I watched my parents' faces tighten in worry, realizing the courtyard now held my body, hidden but not forgotten. Inside the room, my mother stayed with Alara as she rested, while my father escorted Caspian to a quiet pavilion for tea. Mother, Alara asked cautiously, was that ill-fated twin really pregnant? My mother's expression hardened as she nodded. Yes. Last night, we examined her, and she was carrying a child. A sudden ache tore through me, as if my very soul had been wounded. I had never realized it. I truly had been pregnant. Even after all the medicine I had taken, I thought my body was no longer capable of bearing life. Alara let out a soft sigh of relief. It's fortunate we acted first. If she had begun to show, I would never have been able to take her place convincingly. My mother nodded. I saw how attentive my lord was today. You must act quickly. Once you bear a child, even if he discovers the truth, he will tolerate it for the sake of the child. Daisy, leaning close, added, I paid someone to inquire with the palace doctor. He said my lord's questions were only about her health. Nothing else. Alara's lips curved in slight displeasure. So, he wasn't worried about me. He was concerned about that ill-fated twin. My mother patted her hand, reassuringly. Alara, Lyra is gone. From now on, my lord is yours. See how he placed a flower in your hair today. You will have a life full of love, growing old together, blessed with children and grandchildren. A small smile finally touched Alara's face. Mother, I feel so happy now. My mother returned her smile gently. As long as my daughter is happy, that's all that matters. I could not bear to linger any longer. I drifted away silently, fading from their sight. But where could I go? Even in life, I had no place. Unable to return to my family, unable to belong in my husband's home. Even in death, I felt no freedom, no release. I wanted so badly to send Caspian a dream, to tell him where I lay, beneath the pear tree in the Sterling family's garden. But I didn't know how to reach him. He was asleep now, his brow tightly furrowed, lost in another nightmare. Over the past 3 years, I had seen that look countless times. There were nights when he would even cry out in his sleep. Whenever I tried to wake him, his instincts took over. He would jolt upright and seize my throat before realizing it was me. Only then would his grip loosen, horror flickering in his eyes. He used to warn me not to touch him while he slept, saying one day he might kill me by mistake. That fear haunted me for a long time, until I learned the truth, that during his years in the Northern Territories, Caspian had survived countless assassination attempts. No wonder he never slept peacefully. I reached out, my fingers brushing the air, and gently cupped his face. Then I pressed my forehead to his, hoping, somehow, that our souls might connect, that I could enter his dreams. But nothing happened. His body didn't even twitch. No matter how hard I tried, he remained untouched by my presence, as if I were no more than a shadow. Lately, I tried to find other spirits, to see if anyone could help me, but I soon realized Alara had trapped me. Whenever I drifted too far from her, something unseen dragged me back. I didn't know what she had done, or if I was doomed to remain bound to her forever. Just as I turned to leave, Caspian suddenly shifted in his sleep. His arms moved, and for a moment it felt like he was holding me. Even without a body, I could feel the warmth of his embrace. Then his eyes flew open. He stared at the empty space before him, his breathing ragged at first, then slowly calming. A hoarse whisper escaped his lips. "Caspian, don't let her deceive you." That was always who he was, clear-headed, rational. Even during our most passionate nights, when he seemed to want to meld our souls together, dawn would come and he would change. He would become the cold, composed Lord of the North once more, and I would return to being merely Lyra of the Sterling family. Before dawn, a royal messenger arrived with urgent news. The king had awakened. Caspian left for the palace at once. Not long after, the sound of funeral bells filled the air. The king was gone. The entire nation fell into mourning. The new emperor was young, so Caspian was named regent. 13 years ago, he had been exiled to the Northern Territories in chains. 13 years later, he stood at the pinnacle of power, a man who had climbed through mountains of corpses and rivers of blood to reach the throne's shadow. Then began the purges. Of the 5 great families that once ruled beside the crown, only the Sterlings remained. In taverns, men whispered, the Thorns, Vanes, Hazes, and Sinclairs should have offered daughters instead of gold. Jewels fade, but beauty can conquer any heart. I saw the lady once. No man could resist her, not even a lord of the North. Another voice chimed in, laughing. They say when he's home, he never leaves her bed. Meanwhile, my mother was at home, praising Alara with pride. My dear daughter, you are now the most honored woman in the realm. Even the queen mother pales beside you. Alara sighed softly. What good is status, mother? My lord hasn't come to see me in over a month. My mother urged her to be patient. He's handling state affairs. Once the court settles, he'll return to you. But Alara frowned. What if another woman catches his attention while he's away? My mother laughed lightly. If that happens, your father and I will make sure she disappears. Mother, you're so kind to me, Alara said sweetly. My mother smiled with affection. Of course, my darling. You are the jewel I raised with my own hands. Her words pierced me. Was it because she hadn't raised me herself that I, too, was so easily discarded? Alara then asked about my body. My mother told her they hadn't dug it up, but it must have decayed by now, feeding the roots of that pear tree. I looked down at my feet. She was probably right. They had started turning transparent days ago. I was fading. I didn't know why my soul still lingered among the living, or how much longer I could remain. Nor did I understand why, after all this time, no spirit from the underworld had come to claim me. 2 more days passed before Caspian was due to return. Alara stood in front of the mirror, carefully arranging her hair and adjusting her clothing. She gazed at her reflection and murmured, Daisy, did my lord truly come here himself every time before, without Lyra ever summoning him? Daisy nodded. Yes, lady. Alara snorted, a mixture of admiration and envy in her voice. Then she was cunning indeed. I underestimated her before. Daisy hesitated. Lady, perhaps you should choose something more modest? Lyra rarely wore such bright colors. Alara's face hardened. She was Lyra, I am me. I'll wear whatever I like.
But,
Alara, she said sharply, turning to Daisy, it's been 2 months. Lyra Sterling is nothing but bones by now. Why worry about me? I watched silently, and I realized she wasn't foolish. She was desperate to erase my shadow, to replace me completely. No one wants to live in someone else's reflection forever. That evening, Caspian arrived. He wore a dark robe embroidered with golden dragons. His aura of battle and authority softened with an unmistakable nobility. He was a man born of privilege, yet his youth had been shaped by blood and vengeance. Alara rushed forward, her eyes bright with longing. My lord, you've finally returned. She pressed against him, nestling into his arms. Caspian's presence surged like a tide, a man at the peak of power, holding beauty in his grasp.
who could resist that?
He placed a protective arm around her waist, and for a moment, the sharpness in his gaze softened, replaced by the faintest warmth. Yes, I'm back, he murmured. But his expression soon shifted. You still haven't changed your perfume? Alara flinched. I did, my lord. After you said you disliked it, I never wore it again. Caspian studied her for a moment, then said no more. They shared a meal, and he left. The moment he was gone, Alara tore the scented sachets and jewelry from her garments. I've been soaked in this pear blossom scent for so long, and yet he says it's different. Daisy, are you lying to me?
Do you want your family dead? She demanded.
Daisy fell to her knees. Your servant would never dare, lady. Alara seethed. Then what is it? What is different? Daisy pondered. Perhaps it isn't the scent itself, lady. Everyone has a unique natural fragrance. Alara scoffed. What natural fragrance? Look at me. I am almost identical to that ill-fated twin. How could he notice? She didn't know, and neither did I, that Caspian had never mentioned scent to me before. I drifted closer to him. Caspian sat at his desk, staring at his inkstone in the flickering candlelight. I remembered sitting beside him here once, the rustling bamboo outside, and the smell of ink mixing into a moment of quiet peace. That tranquility had been mine. Now the bamboo still swayed, the wind still whispered, but I, who used to sit beside him, was gone. Marcus arrived shortly after. Caspian asked, Did you find anything at the Sterling estate? Everything was normal, my lord. Nothing out of place. Did you sense something? Marcus replied. Caspian's eyes narrowed. Her scent is still not hers. Marcus scratched his head. My lord, a slight change in scent is natural. It doesn't mean anything. Caspian's gaze fell on the fresh pears on the table. He summoned a servant. Tell Alara I want pear tarts tomorrow. She is to make them herself. I felt a pang. I had made pear tarts for him once, long ago. Could he be using taste tester? Perhaps. But it didn't matter. My body lay beneath the pear tree in the courtyard, the tree that had grown with me, that had nurtured me, and that had absorbed years of sun, moon, rain, and dew. It had been my home, my mother, my sustenance. And it should not be fed with my decay. When Alara received the message, panic set in. Why would my lord suddenly want pear tarts? I don't know how to make them. Daisy urged calm. I have seen Lyra make them. I know the recipe. Alara had Daisy write it down, then spent the entire night in the small kitchen, fumbling through the process, burning some tarts, overcooking others, until she finally steamed a batch that resembled the original. Daisy tasted them. It's close enough. This is the taste. Alara exhaled in relief. She washed up and carried the tarts to Caspian. He sampled one piece, swallowing slowly. My lord, how is it? She asked nervously. I remembered. The first time I made pear tarts for him was 6 months after we married. He had returned injured, and I had been sent to care for him. I hesitated at first. My lord dislikes me. Going there might only anger him. But Nanny Eliza smiled knowingly. Lyra, in marriage, taking one step forward brings you closer to him. And a man who defends the realm is not rotten to the core. You have no parents' protection now. Life is harsh, but you can use what you have to create your own home. I obeyed. Caspian did not send me away. For half a month, I changed his dressings, assisted him, tended to him, and during that time, I made pear tarts. I had seen the ripe pears on the estate, destined to rot. I picked them, steamed them, and baked tarts. That day, The kitchen smelled of pears and sweat, my face glistening in the heat. When he appeared, I lied. I saw my lord has no appetite, so I made something to please him. He had smirked. Did you poison it? I wouldn't dare. I bit a piece and spat it out to prove my honesty. My tongue burned. I feared he would punish me, but he didn't. He ate several pieces, eventually. Nanny Eliza chuckled.
See?
One step closer. After that, pear tarts became a yearly ritual, a small thread of connection between us. After Caspian ate a piece of the pear tart, he stared at Alara for a long while. Alara smiled and asked softly, "Does it suit your taste, my lord?" His hand brushed along her neck, a gesture that made Alara's heart flutter with delight. Watching them, I felt a faint ache of disappointment. Maybe my tarts weren't so special after all. But the next moment, his fingers tightened abruptly. A shadow crossed his face, his eyes dark with fury. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Where is Lyra Sterling?" Alara gasped for air, her face turning crimson as she clawed at his hand. Her strength was nothing compared to his. "My lord, I am Alara Sterling," she choked out, barely able to speak. Caspian's voice turned colder. "I'll ask you one last time. Where is Lyra Sterling?" The commotion drew Marcus and several guards inside. They rushed forward, urging Caspian to calm down. "My lord, please. If you kill her, we'll never learn the truth," Marcus shouted. Only then did Caspian's grip loosen. Alara collapsed to the floor, gasping and trembling, her eyes filled with terror, yet she continued to insist she was Alara Sterling. And technically, she wasn't lying. She was Alara Sterling, just not the one he thought. Caspian stared down at her, his tone hard. "Then explain this. When you married, you were frail and sickly. Even with all the tonics I ordered, your health barely improved. How did you recover completely in just a week?" He continued, his expression cold. "Your scent, the taste of your pastries, the way you move, none of it is the same."
Why?
Only then did Alara realize that the woman who once lived in her place had been unwell for years. I had lived quietly and poorly in that small courtyard. My health was never good, but even I didn't know when I had taken all those supposed medicines, except for the ones meant to prevent pregnancy. Had Caspian changed them without my knowledge? Had he wanted a child with me after all? Alara broke into tears. "My lord, I don't understand what you mean." Caspian gave a bitter laugh. "You resemble her too much, but you're not her. Marcus, summon the Sterlings. I want them to identify her themselves." He had the right suspicion, but the wrong way to prove it. My parents soon arrived. They played their roles perfectly, swearing Alara was indeed their daughter. They weren't technically lying either, so Caspian found no flaw to expose. He had no idea that the Sterling family had another daughter, the one he had truly married, the one who had already died. Her name was Lyra Sterling. Marcus and the servants urged him gently, "My lord, you've been working too hard. Perhaps rest would clear your mind." Caspian said nothing. He turned and walked out into the moonlight. I followed him. His shadow stretched long across the courtyard. There was something about this man I could never fully understand. A difference in scent, a sudden recovery, a tart that tasted unfamiliar. None of it should have been enough to convince him. Yet somehow he knew. Marcus caught up to him. "My lord, what troubles you so deeply?" Caspian stopped, his gaze distant. "Do you remember the dream I once told you about?" Marcus frowned, thinking. "The one where you saw the lady and a child across the river, and no matter how you called, she wouldn't answer?" Caspian nodded slowly. "I think she's already gone." He looked up at the stars. "It seems I was never meant to keep anything in this life, my family, my siblings, and now her. Maybe even our child. What's the point of living if everything slips away?" I hovered before him, watching the sorrow in his eyes. Marcus quickly tried to console him. "No, my lord, don't say that. The lady is still alive. And as for a child, didn't the palace doctor say there might be good news this year?" Caspian said nothing for a long time. Then, suddenly, his expression hardened. "Find out everything about Lady Sterling's birth. If there were twins, then everything makes sense." It was a sound theory, but the truth was known only to a handful, my parents, Daisy, and the seer who had long vanished into the world. And my parents were far too careful to ever leave loose ends. Marcus investigated, but found nothing. Every person who might have known, the midwives, the servants, even the attendants, had died one by one over the years. Perhaps even Nanny Eliza's illness had been arranged. She had gone home to recover and soon after was reported dead. I had been devastated then, bedridden with grief. That was when Daisy entered my life, sent by my parents, I now realized, to watch me. Even Daisy was later interrogated, but she too took her secrets to the grave, claiming her own life under the guise of despair. Now, only my parents and Alara knew everything. Alara visited Caspian, dressed exactly as I once did. Her hair, her gown, even her posture mirrored mine. For a fleeting moment, Caspian faltered. She spoke softly, sharing small, intimate details of our married life, details she could only have learned from Daisy's eavesdropping. Caspian listened in silence, then asked, "Since you remember so well, do you recall what I said to you on our wedding night?" Alara froze. She had been prepared to offer information, not to be questioned. After a long pause, she murmured, "It's been too long, my lord. I've forgotten." But I still remembered. He had said, "Though you are pitiful, do not expect my pity." Caspian gave a cold smile. "Forgotten? Then go and remember. Come back when you can answer." Alara turned and fled, her composure breaking. Behind him, Marcus whispered to another guard, "The Lord has changed. Before, he would rather strike down the wrong person than let a liar live." The other replied quietly, "He dares not harm her because he cares." When do you think it started? Who can say? Sometimes love grows in silence, hidden in everyday moments, a shared meal, a cup of tea. It blooms before anyone notices.
My body was fading fast.
My legs had already disappeared, leaving only my long skirt drifting like mist. At this rate, I knew I had only a few days left before I vanished completely. Caspian's investigation shifted. He ordered a search for unidentified female bodies, determined to find proof, living or dead. He said that if no body was found, it would mean I was still alive. I could tell now that he truly wanted to find me, not to accuse but to understand. I tried to whisper to him, again and again, "I'm beneath the pear tree," but he could not hear me. He even dreamed of me standing under the pear blossoms. Why couldn't he see that the answer lay there? Days later, they found numerous bodies, women, men, even children. Caspian took Alara to identify them. I wasn't among them. When he passed the row of small, lifeless infants, he stopped. Most of them were girls. Marcus asked quietly, "My lord, what is it?" Caspian's voice trembled faintly. In my dream, the child was a little girl. I touched my abdomen. I felt nothing. I never even knew she existed. She came into being without my knowledge and perished with me, unseen. In 20 short years of life, it seemed I had gained nothing and lost everything. As we prepared to leave, dark clouds rolled across the sky, heavy and threatening, signaling an impending storm. I felt myself growing more and more transparent. Soon, I feared, I would completely dissipate. Though my killers had long since vanished, and I seemed destined to fade into oblivion, a small part of me still felt regret. But I was powerless. I could not become a vengeful spirit as the story said. I had no magic, no way to drift freely. I no longer wished to cling to Caspian's shadow. I floated upward, yearning to see the capital, the city I had always longed to explore, yet never truly seen. The last time I had been with Caspian alive, I had asked if I could leave the estate and see the sights on my birthday. He had refused. Later, just before he left, he said he might consider it upon his return. I had waited in hope, but it had been in vain. Still, it wasn't too late. Today, I would claim this day as my birthday. Lyra Sterling, even as a ghost starved of life, would see the world. As I looked down at the city, now ruled by Caspian, a commotion erupted below. A disabled beggar clung desperately to Alara's leg, shouting with unrestrained fury. Alara shrieked and tried to have the crowd remove him, but Caspian stopped them, intrigued. It soon became clear. This man was Arthur, the scholar Alara had married. After Alara had seen Caspian again that year and could not forget him, she had first tried to kill Arthur. But Arthur survived, with tenacity that defied death. He wandered the capital, searching blindly for Alara, and today he had finally found her. The truth was revealed. Rain poured down as Alara knelt before Caspian. "I was the one who should have married you back then, my lord. I swear, I did not lie." Lyra Sterling was the ill-fated twin. She was unworthy. Now everything is returning to its proper place. She and I look alike, but I can serve you better. Surely, my lord will come to love me, Elara added, tears mixing with the rain. Caspian stood under his umbrella murmuring, so, her name was Lyra Sterling. Then he crouched before her, a chilling smile curving his lips. If you are so eager to serve me now, why were you unwilling then? Elara shivered, unable to answer. Caspian's voice dropped low, almost teasing. Because you fear death? Because what one cannot have is always the most desired. Elara sobbed. It should have been mine. All mine. My parents pleaded on her behalf, claiming their mistakes had guided everything. Caspian's gaze sharpened. You could have hidden Lyra, kept her safe, yet you chose to kill her. Why? My father replied calmly. She was an ill, fated twin. Her death was inevitable. My mother added, if my lord had found her, Elara would have been sent away. We did what we had to. I felt no sorrow. My father had other children. My mother had raised Elara, and everyone said she was lucky, so naturally she favored her. Caspian finally demanded, where's her body? All three refused. They hoped that by hiding the truth, Caspian might spare them. But if he knew I had died carrying his child, they would not be safe. Suddenly, realization struck him. He looked toward the Sterling estate and spurred his horse forward. He reached the pear tree where I was buried. This year, it bore no fruit. Caspian discarded his umbrella and began digging with his bare hands. Marcus and the others rushed to assist. I watched as my body emerged. I had not yet turned to bones. Perhaps because poison had claimed me slowly, my form still seemed like sleep. My abdomen had been cut open, a gruesome sight. Some onlookers turned away, nauseated, but Caspian showed no fear. He removed his robe, covered my body, and lifted me gently. The rain soaked him, and I imagined tears falling, though perhaps it was only water. Marcus asked, what should we do with them? Pointing to my parents and Elara. Caspian approached Elara and crushed her neck deliberately. She struggled, then fell still. The ill, fated twin has settled your problem, he said to my parents. Then he instructed Marcus, do as you will, but do not let them die. Marcus nodded. My parents trembled, begging him to finish them outright. I had seen Marcus handle assassins. 72 forms of torture could leave someone alive yet enduring a life worse than death itself. The rain ceased, and sunlight bathed the capital. I whispered a quiet thank you into Caspian's ear and wished that he would cremate me rather than bury me. Though he could not hear, I watched him carry me farther away. Finally, I called out, Caspian, if you ever love again, do not frighten her. Tell her the truth sooner. A gust of wind blew, and the brass bells on a nearby roof chimed crisply. Caspian paused and turned his gaze to the wind, searching, but he could not find me. I floated to the pear tree, now resplendent with blossoms. Under its shade sat a little girl. I asked gently, who are you waiting for? The child, with a soft, innocent voice, answered, Mama, I'm waiting for you. I froze. Her eyes and brows reflected both mine and Caspian's. Perhaps she was our daughter. Or perhaps she was a younger version of me, the little girl who had spent every day under the pear blossoms, longing for her mother. I smiled and took her hand. I'm here. Let's go. Her grip tightened. Mama, where are we going? And for the first time in years, I felt at peace. Pear blossoms bloomed in vast swaths, their fragrance drifting across the fields. I held the little girl's hand as we approached a beautiful river. Along its banks, people were queuing patiently, walking forward toward a place of warmth and light at the front. As we neared that glow, I heard a familiar voice. Lyra Sterling. I turned, and there he was, Caspian, striding across the river. He wore the dark robe I had always loved, his hair tied high, fluttering in the wind. He reached us and said softly, Before, I called you, but you never answered. I see now I had the wrong name. Lyra, I'm glad I wasn't too late. For a moment, I thought I had crossed into a dream, that his dream had somehow merged with reality. Behind him, countless soldiers followed, battered and bloodied, missing limbs. He too had fallen in battle. Then, without hesitation, he lifted the child into his arms and took my hand. Let's go. Father and Mother are waiting ahead. I looked forward and saw countless faces waving at us. Among them, I saw Nanny Eliza, her expression both stern and amused. Lyra, she scolded gently, I prayed to the gods for so long for you to live 100 years. Why did you come back so soon? Then I remembered. At the moment of my death, I had heard a voice. Give her a little more time. Nanny prayed every day for her protection. She must at least see her revenge fulfilled. It wasn't dark magic from Alara that had kept me lingering. It had been Nanny Eliza's prayers, guiding me, protecting me even in death. Mother, I whispered, tears in my eyes. She had raised me, named me, taught me to survive, to live, and prayed for my safety all those years. She had waited for me. Nanny Eliza cried, then laughed, and the wind picked up. Pear blossoms danced through the air like snow, grass swayed green and vibrant. Orioles sang across the fields, the moon shone bright, the wind was crisp and clear. Lyra, it was time.